stop. Look at your calendar. What if I told you today isn't actually the year you think it is? Time travelers. What if 297 years of human history just vanished? Forget everything you learned in school. The dates, the kings, the wars, it's all a forgery. A billion-dollar lie written in ink and blood. Welcome to the phantom time hypothesis. We're not just talking about a minor error here. We're talking about a temporal heist where the years between 614 and 911 AD were simply deleted. Imagine Charlemagne, the father of Europe. What if he never drew a single breath? What if he was nothing more than a medieval, a fan fiction character? But why? Why rewrite reality? Because three men, Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and Constantine VII, didn't want to wait for the future, you see. They wanted the prestige of ruling in the year 1000 AD. So, they did the unthinkable. They moved the hands of the clock forward by 3 centuries. Think that's impossible? Well, wait until you see the architectural evidence that proves these 300 years are a total vacuum. Stay with me, because we're about to pull the thread that unravels the last millennium. If the Middle Ages were a myth, right? What else are they hiding? Open any history textbook and you see a seamless, unbreakable timeline. You see, we're taught a linear progression of kings, monks, and scribes meticulously recording every passing year of the early Middle Ages. The standard narrative tells us that as the glory of Rome faded into the mist, the Carolingian Empire rose to take its place. We learn about the legendary Charlemagne, the so-called father of Europe, and those devout scribes sitting in flickering candlelight, documenting the birth of Western civilization. It feels solid, right? And feels real. Here. Well, here's where the story begins to fray at the edges. When we look closer, a specific era roughly from 614 to 911 AD, we find something deeply unsettling. In the world of historical investigation, we call this the Dark Age. And for a long time, we just assumed it was dark, simply because we lacked records. But what if it's dark because there's nothing there to see? Think about it, time travelers. History isn't just written in ink. It's written in the earth. You see, when a civilization exists, it leaves a footprint. It leaves behind massive cathedrals, sprawling villas, and even something as simple as discarded pottery. Yet, when archaeologists dig into the layers of the European soil corresponding to these 3 centuries, they hit a terrifying void. Where are the great architectural marvels of the 7th and 8th centuries? Where's the evolution in ceramic styles, or the shift in agricultural tools? In almost every other era, we see a clear progression. But here, the clock seems to have frozen. It's as if an entire continent went into a state of suspended animation, leaving behind almost no physical evidence of its existence. We have thousands of documents claiming these years happened, but we have almost no ruins to prove it, right? It paints a picture of a world that was manufactured in a silent scriptorium, rather than lived on the ground. We're left to the chilling realization. The only evidence we have for nearly 300 years of history is a collection of papers. Papers written by the very people who stood to gain the most from a forged timeline. The official story of the early Middle Ages is starting to look less like a record and more like a ghost story. But if these 3 centuries were a fabrication, well, it raises a question that should keep you up at night. Who would have the power, the resources, and the sheer audacity to rewrite 300 years of human existence without anyone noticing? To find the architect of this grand illusion, We have to follow the trail of the most powerful man in the medieval world. Wait. Stop. Look at your calendar for a second. Right? Now, just imagine 3 whole centuries of that time simply vanishing. Poof. Gone. Time travelers. We just hit the most disturbing part of this investigation. I mean, to really understand how 300 years were stolen, we have to look at what was left behind. Or, well, more accurately, the absolute nothingness. You see, evolution usually follows a curve, right? Architecture gets better. Languages evolve. Technology moves. But between the 7th and 10th centuries in year, it's like the entire world hit a massive pause button. Think about this. Archaeologists dig into the dirt expecting a timeline, but instead, they find a mirror. The year 1000 looks almost identical to the year 700. I mean, no transition, no progress. It's as if builders in the 10th century just woke up and used blueprints that should have been ancient history. Why? Because according to the phantom time hypothesis, those years never happened. They are a literal black hole in human existence. And the science, well, it gets even weirder. We can date almost anything today, but the early Middle Ages, the data is paper thin. I mean, carbon dating for these specific centuries is a total nightmare. Would samples? They point to years way earlier. Or way later. It's like the Earth itself is missing a pulse. But here's the real kicker. The stars. You see, ancient people were obsessed with eclipses. But between the year 614 and 911, the Rickers just go dark. Astronomically speaking, the events that should be there, well, they simply aren't. Did the sky stop? Or was the calendar manipulated? If the years are a lie, then what about the man, Charlemagne, the father of Europe? The legend. He was a giant, a genius, an undefeated god among men. He's the very anchor of our history. But what if Charlemagne wasn't a man at all? What if he was a ghost? You know, proponents say he's the ultimate medieval superhero, a fictional character cooked up by later rulers just to fill a 300-year gap. If you delete Charlemagne, the entire Middle Ages crumbles like a house of cards. Which leaves us with one terrifying question. If you're going to delete 297 years of history, why? I mean, you don't do this by accident. You do it to seize power. You do it to own the world. And the people sitting on those thrones, they had a motive so dark. They were willing to move heaven and earth to keep you from ever asking, what year is it? Really? Prepare yourselves, time travelers. The cracks in the matrix are about to explode. Who? Time travelers. Stop. I want you to take a long look at your calendar. What if I told you it's a complete fabrication? See, we aren't actually in the 21st century. And all, according to a group number experts, we're actually living in the late 1700s. Confused? Well, you should be. To find the architects of this 300-year heist, we have to go back to the year 1000. Or, at least, what they wanted you to think was the year 1000. Meet the masterminds. First, Otto III, a young, power-hungry emperor, obsessed with becoming the next Caesar. But he needed a partner. You see, someone with the dark arts of administration. Enter Gerbert of Aurillac. The world knew him as Pope Sylvester II. His contemporaries? Well, They called him the Wizard Pope. Why? Because his knowledge was so advanced. They thought it was supernatural. Together, they realized that terrifying truth controlled the calendar. And you control the soul humanity. They didn't want to rule some obscure, forgotten century. They wanted the prestige, the glory, of the second millennium. The problem? They were right about 300 years too early. So, they did the unthinkable. They cheated. Alongside the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. This trio didn't just smudge a few dates. I mean, they invented entire kings. They fabricated land grants. They backdated scrolls for wars that were never fought, and dynasties that simply never existed. They literally fast-forwarded the world into a future they designed. For over 1,000 years, you know, we've studied their fanfiction as if it were gospel. We are living inside a 300-year-old lie. They thought. They committed the perfect crime. They scrubbed the records, burned the evidence, and silenced the witnesses. But they forgot one thing. You can bribe a monk. You can threaten a scribe. You can, silence the stars. And what the heavens are about to reveal is something Otto and Sylvester never expect to find. Ready to see the proof that breaks history? Time travelers, take a long look at your calendar. It says 2024. But you know, if the math of the phantom time hypothesis holds true, that number is a complete fabrication. If we strip away those 297 stolen years, we aren't living in some high-tech future, right? We're actually waking up. Right now, in year 1727. Think about the weight of that. I mean, we aren't centuries removed from the Enlightenment. We are right in the thick of it. The shadows of the 1700s aren't just history, they are current reality. This revelation doesn't just move the goalposts. It collapses the entire stadium. If those 3 centuries were manufactured, then the timeline of the Roman Empire, the true dates of the Crusades, and the origins of the Renaissance are all stacked like a deck of cards. The Dark Ages weren't dark because of a lack of progress. No, they were dark because they were a VOI to literal ghost in the machine of time. It means the heroes and villains we've studied for 1,000 years might have walked the earth much closer to our own time than the history books dare to admit. But the most terrifying part, well, it isn't what happened back then. It's the realization of what it says about the people in power. If a handful of elites, an emperor, and a pope could successfully delete 300 years of human existence and convince the entire world it happened, what else have they hidden? If they could rewrite the very fabric of time to suit their own divine right to rule, what are the modern architects of our world scrubbing from our records today? We like to think we live in an age of information, but we might actually be living in the greatest era of disinformation ever conceived. History isn't a solid stone monument. It's a living, breathing narrative that has been edited while we sleep. Every time you see an architectural style that doesn't fit its era, or a gap in a carving dating that the experts brush aside, you've seen a glitch in the simulation they built for us. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever looked at a historical site or a piece of ancient technology and felt like the math just didn't add up? Are you ready to admit that we might still be navigating the 18th century? Drop your theories in the comments. Right? We are looking for the investigators, the skeptics, and the ones who refuse to be told what year it is. If you're ready to keep peeling back the layers of the lies we've been fed, hit that subscribe button and join our community of time travelers. We are just getting started. And the truth is far stranger than any fiction they could ever write. Keep your eyes open. The glitches. They're everywhere.